On the 6th of September 2011, Sega and Relic Entertainment released, which in my humble opinion is easily one of the best Warhammer 40k games to date, Space Marine. In a grim dark future where there is only war, do you need to be a Warhammer 40k buff to dive in and enjoy Space Marine as a game and its story? Now, it's worth noting at the moment that I myself am not a loresmith of the Warhammer 40k universe. I know a little bit here and there, as I have recently found myself intrigued by Warhammer 40k thanks to my brother buying me models as gifts throughout the years, and I finally decided to dive in and see what all the fuss was about. So, you could quite easily classify me as an Adeptus Nubicus. The game starts out on the forge world of Graia, being invaded by orcs. The Imperium of Man is not willing to let the planet fall into orc hands. This is because in the 40k universe, a forge world is basically a planet dedicated to the manufacturing and production of materials to aid the war effort of the Imperium, and as it so happens, Graia is tasked with the manufacturing of Titans, which are giant bipedal machines, nothing like a Metal Gear. A Titan is more like an iron giant, packing weapons that could level a city. The Imperium calls in the Adeptus Astartes Ultra, better known as the Ultramarines, to Graia in order to turn the tide on the orcish invasion effort. The game opens with a squad of Ultramarines, and you play as Captain Titus, head of the squad to intercept and deal with orcish invasion forces. As the game transitions from cinematic to playable, you will land on an orc invasion frigate in front of a small wave of grots. Grots are little imp-like orcs, which are no more than cannon fodder, before the game introduces you to fully fledged orcs, who are about the same size as you and come in different variants of combatants. Some will rush in for a melee attack, and others will prefer to hang back and attack with weaponry from afar. Through the introduction to the game, you will learn basic combos as you are equipped with a combat knife and a single shot sidearm, which brings me to how you attain health in the game if you're running low. What you might notice on the top center of the screen is that your health bar is surrounded by a yellow membrane-like bar, which signifies your shields, which surround your health. Once the shields are dropped down, your health is exposed to attack, and if that reaches 0, you will die. However, you can regain health by lowering your enemy's health by way of attacking them, and then stun them and use an execution move, which will show you slaughtering your opponent in glorious brutality. My one critique with this though is if you are surrounded by enemies, you're still open to losing health while the move is playing out, and you cannot cancel and you have no access to controls while the move is happening, so it essentially leaves you wide open to attack, and if you're low on health, it will mean death, which frustrated me immensely. As you progress through the game, you will land on Graia's surface where you are separated from your squad, at which point you will need to rendezvous with them while you wade your way through orc ground forces, which are plaguing the planet's surface. As you're making your way, you'll encounter new weapons, the first of which is the bolter, which is similar to that of an assault rifle, which will give you automatic fire as opposed to the sidearm you started the game with, which again is single shot. Shortly after, you will meet one of the most junior of your squad, Leandros, who takes the codex of the Ultramarines a little too much like the gospel truth, and you'll find yourself throughout the game when dealing with Leandros telling him to relax and think for yourself a bit, which, if you finish the game, you know he doesn't. Eventually, you'll meet the human regiment station on Graia. Yes, you heard that right, humans, which means that Space Marines aren't exactly human. They're more like engineered superhumans and a lot bigger than you or me. The situation is dire. All the human commanders are dead, leaving a lieutenant at the helm to spearhead the resistance effort. The Adeptus Astartes Ultra are needed to assist humanity, at which point Fury is unlocked. Fury is an ability like that of Spartan Rage from God of War. Enable this and you're able to deal out significantly increased amounts of damage against enemy units while recovering. And as you progress through the game, you'll be able to increase the duration, damage and health regen of the Fury effect. This is achieved through finding and unlocking purity seals throughout the game, which are found in gothic looking storage containers. The yellow ones signify a seal upgrade, and every seal upgrade you obtain in the game gives an added benefit to your Fury mode. I'd like to stress that if you are thinking about playing Space Marine, don't worry about banking and holding your built-up fury for a dire situation. Use and abuse it at will. It is simple enough to get back and makes the game a lot more fun. I played half of the game using it sparingly, and then I decided to use it every time I had filled up the fury meter, and I just found myself enjoying the combat a lot more than if I didn't use it. Like the Gothic storage containers which contain purity seals, there are blue lit ones which signify weapons, and as you play through the game, you will get access to the following. In handguns, you'll have the bolt pistol. This is effectively what you'll start the game with and is your old faithful in terms of weapons when launching headfirst into the frenzy of orcs. This weapon has unlimited ammo, but is limited to 10 shots per reload event. The plasma pistol. Again, as a sidearm, this does have unlimited ammo, but because it uses plasma, it's prone to overheating, which forces you to vent the weapon to cool it, which is basically the same as reloading. Assault weapons. The bolter. Your assault rifle, which is fantastic at ripping your enemies apart. This packs a 30 round magazine. The Kraken bolter. Much like the bolter, just with upgraded damage. The plasma gun. This rifle is a plasma variant which shoots superheated plasma to melt through the enemy's armor and the enemy themselves, but again, it's prone to overheating. Heavy weapons. The Vengeance launcher. This weapon shoots magnetic explosive rounds which adhere to enemy armor and weaponry. So think of this as like a sticky gun. You can load up a target with 3 magnetic rounds and then detonate them at will, which will detonate them in sequential order of how they're fired. The melter gun. A plasma-based shotgun which comes with limited ammunition, but at close range can cause a lot of damage in tight spaces. The storm bolter. This is the bolter which has done a fusion dance with another bolter. The result is a double bolter, which is fantastic at turning enemies at close range into Swiss cheese. But if you try and take out a target at range, it's basically like pissing into the wind and thinking you won't cover yourself in your own urine. It's just not going to happen. High range weapons. Stalker bolter. Think of this as a bolt action sniper rifle. It can be used for close range in a pinch, but it's far more effective at picking off those enemies that like to hail grenades or rockets from afar. The las cannon. Devastatingly powerful sniper rifle using plasma. But the downside is that you're only going to get 15 shots before it's totally out of ammo and has a cooldown per shot which can leave you vulnerable. Now, in addition to all of these wonderful weapon variants, you're also going to get melee weapon variation as well. The combat knife. Now this is what you'll effectively start the game with, and it will be replaced fairly quickly. This is the most forgetful and least used melee weapon in the game, and its sole purpose is to get you ready for melee combat. The chainsword. This will immediately replace the combat knife. The chainsword is the bastard offspring of a chainsaw and a sword, designed to cleave its way through armor and flesh indiscriminately. Power axe, an axe with a super sharp edge and hooked into a battery, and just allows you to hack away at your opposition in broad, violent strokes. The thunder hammer basically turns you into Thor. Again, a broad sweeping weapon able to hit many targets per swing, bludgeoning the enemy into oblivion. Now that thunder hammer works great in tandem with a jump pack. You'll experience this throughout the game, where certain stages call for you to be a little more aerial than before, because in Space Marine, you cannot jump. The jump pack allows you to do just that, with a vengeance, thrusting you into the air to get to those hard to reach places, and as it so happens, contains its own set of attacks, which basically turns you into a meteor. Gameplay feels heavily inspired by Gears of War, with hints of God of War as I mentioned earlier. I have been playing this on PC with my Xbox controller plugged in, and the control system is almost identical to that of Gears of War. The D-pad control buttons dictate the switching of weapons. The weighted movement of the Space Marine feels the same as movement in Gears of War, but that's actually a good thing. Looking at a Space Marine, you can see and imagine the amount of weight behind them. What you're missing from Space Marine is the roadie run and the active reload functions. I was ripping into some of the story earlier, and without spoiling the whole game, to enjoy Space Marine, do you need to know the ins and outs of Warhammer 40k lore? Absolutely not. It's an easy enough game to pick up and play and enjoy, and the game lends you the story easily. The only thing you might not pick up straight away is some of the terminology, which really, it's not that hard to figure out, like manufactorum, which translates to, this is where shit gets made. The story takes some amazing twists and turns, and the ending will leave you wanting more. But to dive a little further in terms of events which are taking place on the planet, you can find these little red skulls floating called servo skulls, which store the recordings of events which you can listen to on the spot or rack them up and listen to them later through the pause menu. But if you have wanted to get to know a little more about the Warhammer 40k universe and don't know where to start, Space Marine is a great game to experience, not only as a playable experience, but just to see how the universe plays out, because really, I believe it's just the tip of the iceberg. You can enjoy it for the game that it is, or, if you're like me, it's a gateway experience, which will launch you into darker and more fantastic stories and events, which the 40k universe is loaded with. It's an experience that shouldn't be missed, and has aged amazingly well. And even better is that in 2024, we will be getting the long-awaited sequel, which personally I cannot wait for. With all that said, praise the Emperor and pass the ammunition.